Okay, so, when you sent over this article from F1-Insider.com about Ferrari's 2025 car.
The SF-25.
Yeah, the SF-25. I knew we were in for a wild ride this season.
It's a big one.
It's not even just the tech specs. It's like,
Right.
what does this signal about Ferrari's mindset this year?
Mm-hmm.
They're making some bold moves,
Yeah.
and it feels like they're either incredibly confident or maybe just maybe a little desperate. What do you think?
I think the first thing that jumps out at me is that driver lineup. I mean, Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes
Oh, yeah.
after 12 years to join Ferrari.
It's huge.
Practically unheard of at this point in a driver's career.
Right.
It's not like he needs another championship to cement his legacy,
Exactly.
So what's really driving this move?
Well, the article actually quotes him saying he's chasing his first Ferrari title,
Oh, wow.
not just his 8th.
Interesting.
So maybe it is about legacy,
Okay.
but a very specific kind. Like, he wants to be a champion in red, not just a champion.
That's a fascinating angle.
Yeah.
And it plays right into Ferrari's own narrative. I mean, they've come so close in recent years.
Oh, they have?
The pressure to finally win that championship
I can't even imagine.
must be immense.
And they're not just relying on a big-name driver to do it either.
Right.
The SF-25 itself has some pretty radical design choices.
Yeah.
Like this pull rod suspension.
Oh, yeah.
For those listening who might not be familiar with the technical side of F1,
Sure.
it's basically flipping the traditional suspension setup, putting the components lower down in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Ferrari is the only team going this route this year.
Wow.
It feels like a huge gamble, doesn't it?
It does. Most teams abandoned pull rod suspension years ago because it can be tricky to get right.
Yeah, I bet.
But if Ferrari has cracked the code, it could unlock some significant aerodynamic gains.
So we're talking.
Remember, they were just 0.59 points per race away from the championship in 2024.
Oh my gosh, that's so close.
They're looking for those tiny edges.
Wow.
Those thousandths of a second. That can make all the difference.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
that level of precision is just mind-blowing.
It is.
You highlighted a detail in the article that I found really intriguing.
Okay.
Ferrari themselves are saying they need 4 or 5 races to really assess the SF-25's potential. What does that tell you about their strategy?
It suggests they're willing to adapt.
Oh, okay.
If this pull rod gamble doesn't pay off immediately, they might shift their focus to the 2026 rule changes.
Interesting.
Which are going to shake things up quite a bit.
For sure.
It seems like they're keeping their options open.
Okay.
Not putting all their eggs in one basket.
So it's not just about winning this year.
Right.
It's about building a foundation for the future.
Exactly. And speaking of foundations, there's another aspect to this whole situation that we need to consider. The human element.
Right.
You pointed out how the article talks about Hamilton embracing Italian culture, learning the language.
Oh, yeah. He's even raving about the food. It's like he's really trying to become part of the Ferrari family.
Right.
Not just another driver in the seat.
That kind of cultural fit is crucial.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with two alpha drivers like Hamilton and Leclerc.
Oh, absolutely.
They're both used to being number one.
For sure.
So how they interact and work together could make or break Ferrari's season.
All right, so we've got this high-stakes driver pairing a potentially revolutionary car with its pull rod suspension and a team that's hungry for a championship, but also aware they need to play the long game.
It's going to be an interesting season.
Before we dive deeper into the potential for fireworks between Hamilton and Leclerc, let's take a quick pause here and come back for part 2.
It's interesting you bring up that human element.
Yeah.
Because Formula One is such a high-pressure environment.
Oh, for sure.
And Ferrari,
especially Ferrari,
with its history and, passionate fan base,
yeah,
really takes that pressure to another level.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Leclerc and Hamilton both being those alpha drivers.
Right.
The article actually calls Leclerc extremely mature, despite being only 27. Could that age difference actually be an advantage for Ferrari?
It's certainly possible Hamilton has this wealth of experience, and Leclerc might be, more open to learning from a seasoned veteran like him.
Right.
If they can find a way to really work together to push each other,
yeah,
it could be a formidable partnership.
But what if that pushing each other turns into like a full-blown rivalry?
Oh, yeah.
Could we see fireworks on and off the track?
There's always that risk. They're both incredibly competitive.
For sure.
But Leclerc has shown that he's willing to put the team first. And Hamilton,
yeah,
despite his superstar status,
right,
he is a team player when it's needed.
All this talk about drivers and team dynamics is fascinating.
It is.
But let's not forget the car itself.
Right.
This pull rod suspension is a big gamble.
It is.
What are the risks involved if it doesn't work as intended?
Well, the biggest risk is that it simply doesn't deliver those expected aerodynamic gains. Okay.
Developing a new suspension system is incredibly complex.
Oh, yeah.
And it could even make the car more difficult to handle.
Wow.
Imagine the headlines if both drivers are struggling to keep the SF-25 on the track.
Oh, that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
But let's flip the script.
Okay.
What if Ferrari has cracked the code? What if this car is as fast as they're hoping it will be?
Then we could be in for one of the most exciting seasons in F1 history.
Oh, wow.
If the SF-25 can challenge Red Bull at the front,
Yeah.
it will be a battle for the ages.
I like it.
But even with a fast car,
Uh-huh.
Ferrari still needs to execute flawlessly.
Okay.
Reliability strategy, pit stops, driver performance.
Right.
It all has to come together.
So even with all these changes, Ferrari's success is far from guaranteed.
That's true.
It's a reminder that in Formula One, there are so many factors at play,
Yeah,
and even the smallest mistake can be costly.
absolutely.
It sounds like you're saying we need to manage our expectations a bit. To a certain extent, yes. It's important to remember that this is a long-term project for Ferrari.
Okay.
They're not just focused on winning this year. They're building for the future.
Right.
And the 2026 rule changes are just around the corner.
That's right.
Those changes will be huge for the sport.
Oh, yeah?
New engines, new aerodynamics.
It's going to be a whole new ballgame.
Exactly.
So Ferrari needs to be thinking about how this year's development will impact their position for 2026.
Right.
That adds like a whole other layer of complexity to their strategy.
Absolutely. You mentioned how Ferrari needs those first few races to evaluate the SF-25.
Yeah.
But the article also points out that those early races will determine how much they invest in further development of the car.
Oh, wow.
That's a crucial decision.
I bet.
If they pour all their resources into making the SF-25 a winner this year,
Yeah.
they could fall behind in that development race for 2026.
So they're walking a tightrope,
They are.
trying to be competitive now while also preparing for a future with a whole new set of rules.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
And that's where that flexibility you mentioned earlier comes in. They need to be ready to pivot to adapt their strategy based on how the car performs and how their rivals are developing their own cars.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
We've covered the technical innovations, the driver dynamics, and the strategic considerations facing Ferrari as they embark on this new chapter. But before we wrap things up, I think it's important to take a moment to reflect on what this all means for our listener.
Okay.
Why should they care about this story?
Right.
What's the bigger picture here?
I think this is more than just a story about a car and a team.
Yeah.
It's about ambition, about taking risks, about pushing the limits of what's possible.
It's about that relentless pursuit of excellence,
Right.
even in the face of immense pressure.
Absolutely.
We're talking about one of the most prestigious and demanding sports in the world.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even with all the technology and resources at their disposal, success is never guaranteed.
Yeah.
It takes hard work, dedication, and a bit of luck.
And speaking of luck, let's not forget how quickly things can change in Formula One.
Oh, yeah.
One moment you're leading the race, the next, you're spinning off into the gravel trap.
It happens all the time.
It's a sport that demands constant adaptation and resilience.
Which brings us right back to Ferrari and their gamble with the SF-25.
Yeah.
Will it pay off? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, it's going to be a fascinating journey to watch unfold.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've seen how Ferrari is pushing boundaries with their car design, their driver lineup, and their overall strategy. But before we let our listener go, I think we should leave them with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
So let's take a quick pause here and come back for part 3. We'll do just that. All right, so we're back, and, after all this talk about Ferrari's 2025 season, I'm getting that feeling like right before the lights go out.
Oh, yeah.
At the start of a race.
That anticipation.
Yeah, that mix of anticipation and nerves. It's like the whole team is lined up on the grid.
Engines revving.
Waiting for that green light.
They've made their bets. They've taken their risks.
And now it's all about execution.
Exactly.
We talked about the drivers, the pressure cooker that is Ferrari. But now we want to shift the focus to you,
Okay.
our listener.
All right.
Imagine for a moment that you're the one calling the shots at Ferrari.
Oh,
You've got the SF-25 with its radical pull rod suspension sitting in the garage.
okay.
You've signed Lewis Hamilton, a legend, who wants to win in red,
That's a big deal.
to partner with your rising star Charles Leclerc,
Uh-huh.
the Tifosi Ferrari's passionate fans. They're expecting a championship.
Oh, yeah.
So the question we're leaving you with is this.
Okay.
Knowing what we know now
Right.
about the car, the drivers,
Yeah.
the pressure, the long game Ferrari has to play, would you have taken this gamble?
It's a tough call.
It is, isn't it?
There's the potential for a dream season, a return to dominance,
Yeah.
but also the risk of a spectacular implosion.
And that's what's so compelling about Formula One. You know? It's not just about the speed and the technology.
Yeah.
It's about strategy. Human psychology navigating that fine line between brilliance and disaster.
And as you continue to follow this season,
Yeah.
keep that question in mind.
Right.
Was Ferrari's gamble a stroke of genius or a step too far?
Ooh, I like that.
Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be a thrilling ride.
So there you have it, Ferrari's 2025 season.
Wow.
A high-stakes game of innovation, ambition, and maybe even a little bit of madness.
You said it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.